It is March 25th, 2020, and it looks like Congress has finally moved on a huge stimulus package. Will it work? Hi, I'm John McNeil, and this is the Invest Strong Network. Welcome. So, what the Congress, along with the president, is hoping to do is basically replace about 18% of the American economy, $23 trillion economy, about 18% of it, or about $4.5 trillion that has been knocked out of it by the coronavirus epidemic, right? Well, the packages, plural, that they have passed has a little bit of something for everyone, right? And that makes sense to me because just about everyone has taken a hit on this, and almost everyone, this is an impact upon them that really they had no control over, and it's not caused by any kind of real profligacy or moral failures on their part, right? And it's just one of these things that happen. And fortunately, we do have a government and a Federal Reserve that's able to step in and try to tide us over while we go through this. Now, in this particular vid, I'm going to be putting on several different hats, right? So we'll have a bit of the historian hat, we'll have a bit of a political punditry hat, and we'll have a bit of an investor cap, right? So let's get right into it. Now, some persons question what the government has done here because they say, well, hey, why are they providing either loans or monies to these big businesses, especially the airlines and travel businesses that during the good times they purchased back stock, or they gave bonuses to executives or employees and things like that. And I kind of hear you on that level, but this particular situation is rather different from what happened in 2008, 2009. There you had persons who were over leveraged. There are a lot of really bad financial decisions just made across the board that plunged the nation and particular industries into crisis, right? Well, that's not really what happened here. What happened here is that you had a massive business interruption that was basically mandated by the government. So with that being the case, it's much, to me anyway, it's much more akin to an eminent domain situation, right? So in eminent domain, your state or local government will come in, take over, property that you own, right, to build a high school or expand a freeway or do something else that's in the public good. And by doing that, they agree to compensate you for the property that they are taking from you, right? Well, in this particular instance, the government is not necessarily taking property, but they're taking business. They're taking they're taking people's livelihoods away. And if they're taking your livelihood away, they should compensate you for that. That makes total sense to me. Now, for those persons who say, well, they're bailing out these big companies. Yeah, they should, because it's because of the fiat that they commanded down on these companies in order to stop the spread of COVID-19, which is completely proper. But if they're going to basically tell a business that they can't, tell a company that they can't do business, they should compensate them for that lost business. That makes total sense to me. And even if in the good times, which were really only a few weeks ago, if in the good times the businesses weren't doing everything that we would like them to do in an ideal world, is neither here nor there. The reality is, again, in an eminent domain situation, you have people who, only God knows what they've been involved with, right? They could have a criminal record or they could have, fathered kids out of wedlock, or who knows, right? But if the government is going to come in and take their property, the government has to compensate them for it, right? And I mean that's just it. So I'm okay with them, providing financial support to companies large and small to help them make it through this, right? So will this package work? Well, looking at it from a historical standpoint, if this crisis can be contained to a couple of months, yes, it can work, right? Because really, just mathematically, the way it looks like in a $23 trillion economy, if you're going to basically take 2 months out of that, right, that's going to be about $4.5–5 trillion, which is basically the size of the actions taken by the government so far, and also supplemented by what the Federal Reserve is doing. Now, here's the wild card. If this thing drags on into the summer and fall, or possibly into 2021, hey, all bets are off, right? Now, President Trump himself yesterday has floated the idea of maybe being able to end this thing, or at least get the company partially back, the country partially back to work by Easter. That's April 12th this year, right? Now, looking at it, putting on the political punditry hat, to me, that arbitrary date seems to be a date that was picked to appeal to these evangelical people who make up the base of his political support. It's not really based on any kind of facts or science, right? And to be honest with you, the way the trend is going, it's not going to be met, right? So I think that this current lockdown situation is going to last at least through April, and perhaps into May, right? Now, if it can be contained until then perhaps, by early summer, the country and maybe globally, then the world can kind of get back to an economic healing, right? So what do I suggest an investor do? Well, again, if you just go back and perhaps watch my other vids from the last month and a half or so, you just have to be very, very careful. Pick high quality assets, right? There are still good stocks out there, good companies that have cash hoards. They're able to ride out this storm and they'll come out stronger on the other end, right? But for the meantime, certainly until May and in June, this is going to be a wild ride. And we really just do not know how it's going to end, right? You definitely want to keep your powder dry, accumulate your cash, right? And really do thorough research on any investment you want to make. This right now, for the next month and a half or so, certainly is not the time to be making any kind of speculative investments. So those are my thoughts, and love to know what you think. You can leave a comment below, please, right? And thank you, and good luck.